Hey there, this is Joe Techie from thejoetechie.com. Today in this video I'm going to talk about the new ZAGG Rugged Book for the iPad Air 2. This will be an unboxing and review of this keyboard. Alright, so this model comes in black, and I'm going to outline some of the pros and the cons for this and how it might compare to some of the other keyboards that are on the market. Alright, so let me go ahead and just open the box up so we can have a quick look. Just quickly noting some of the features that it's showing here. It's got the 4-in-1 function modes. Multi-angle, it's got a 2-year battery expectancy, which seems pretty cool too. And let's see if it shows, got a couple pictures on the back, just kind of giving you the different modes. It's got keyboard, case mode, video mode, and then book mode. So let's go ahead and crack this open so we can see exactly what we're dealing with here. Okay, so here is the keyboard. Go ahead and pop this out of the case. Okay, seems pretty snug in here. Let me go ahead and get this out. And like I said, it's definitely very snug. I guess they wedged that in there pretty good. Okay, so we've got the packing material and the quick start guide. There's a charging cable right over here as well. Let's kind of set this aside for now. Okay, so here is the actual case. And as you can tell by looking at this, it definitely looks rugged as it is called. So, you know, at first glance, as I'm looking at this keyboard definitely reminds me of the Panasonic Toughbook. Very, very similar resemblance. If you've ever seen a Toughbook, I'll put up a picture of that so you can see. But at first glance, we have the camera cutout here. This is the sleep button, and you've got your headphone microphone port. And on the other side, you've got the charging port for the keyboard case, and then you've got your speaker cutouts and the charging port for the iPad itself. And over here, we've got the little microphone port and your up and down volume. So some of the buttons, in fact, all the buttons are actually built into the case, so you actually push down on that, so that's kind of neat. So let's take a look. Let's go ahead and crack this open so we can see what we've got here. This hinge is very stiff. As you can see, it kind of just popped out on its own there because it's very stiff. So what this does is if you've seen my video on the Slimbook, this thing is pretty much identical to the Slimbook. It has the exact same design with the notches here at the bottom of the back cover. Those notches will fit here inside the grooves, and you'll see the 2 notches there that it actually fits in. Okay, and that just kind of snaps in there. It's actually magnetized, so it just kind of pops in there on its own. You know, at first glance, this definitely appears to be a very durable, solid case. I mean, I would say that this definitely would survive a drop. Like if you were just accidentally drop this off, you know, from here to the floor, or even higher, I'd be inclined to say that your iPad and the keyboard would definitely survive the drop, because you've got all this rubber material around both the back cover and the keyboard case. So it seems very durable, very solid. You could take this out into the field if, say, you were trying to do some stuff out in the field and not worry about this thing getting too dirty or too banged up, so to speak. All right, what I'm going to do is, as I go along here, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of put the iPad in there so we can kind of get an idea of how this will go in here, because it looks like it's got this overlap. I don't know if you can see that, but it's got these little edges here. They kind of overlap, so it looks like it's going to be slightly challenging to get my iPad into this thing. Alright, so I am going to attempt to put this in here this way first, and I don't typically like to do that because the buttons are up on top, but just because of the way they designed this, it looks like I'm kind of forced to do it this way. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of sticking it in bottom first here and just kind of pressing it in. Okay, and so the edges, they kind of come over and overlap the iPad, so it's got face protection. So if I was to set it flat, and it would you know, it basically would protect the screen or the glass a little bit, so that's a good thing. I would definitely recommend a screen protector with any case that you buy, just so you have that little extra bit of protection in case something kind of grazes the screen. It doesn't scratch it like I ended up with this scratch way over here. It might be hard to see that, but so let's go ahead and move forward. So here's the, again, it's docked in there. We've got the multiple viewing angles. Okay, it's got the smart magnet feature, so it wakes the iPad up and puts it to sleep when you close the lid. As I mentioned before, it's got the multiple modes. So let's just say we want to have this in book mode. This is what they call book mode, where you flip it backwards and then fold it over. This is convenient if you're not wanting to split the keyboard and the iPad up and kind of ditch the keyboard and put it in another place. My personal preference is if I'm reading in book mode, I like to just do this. I like to take the iPad off the keyboard and just hold it in my hand. It seems much easier to hold for me. That's just my preference. Some people may not really care. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and pair this thing up just so that we can have an idea of how this thing gets paired. So let's go into my settings and then Bluetooth. Okay, I'm going to turn this on, so it's got a green light flashing, and now I'm going to hold the Bluetooth button over here. So now this turns blue. You'll see it turning blue there, so that means it's in pairing mode. And now the iPad appears down here, so I'm going to go ahead and click on it, the Rugged Book, and it shows that it's now connected. So I should be able to click the home button, which is right here, and it takes me to my home screen. So that indicates that it's definitely connected now. So just real quick, let me go over the keyboard and its features. It is a full-blown keyboard. It has the island keys, and you do have the number keys and the function keys are on a separate row. Again, this is exactly how the Slimbook, which is basically like its little brother, so to speak. This is big brother by being the Rugged Book. So the function keys are on its top row, which is very nice because that way you don't have to share the function keys with the number keys. And in some other keyboards, you actually have both sets of keys shared with one row, so you have your number and your function keys all in one, and that means that you have to hold your function key down in conjunction with the special function that you're trying to press. I personally like to have them on their own row so that I'm not having to remember that, pressing that extra button. One thing I want to note, there's this little notch down here, and what they did, the reason why they did that, and at least my opinion is that they allowed you to have better access to your control center, so you can flip up your control center from the bottom much easier on this model. And that's actually to the contrary of how the Slimbook is. It was a little more difficult on the Slimbook. Even though they did have a slight notch, it just made it more difficult. You literally had to use the edge of your index finger to pop it up, where in this one I can use my thumb to pop it up, and it comes up quite easily, so that's a good thing. So the keys, they feel pretty nice. They've got a nice little matte finish on it so that I can tell exactly what I'm typing. Another nice little feature here is that it is backlit, so you can see that all the keys are nicely backlit, which is excellent for typing in the dark. That's one of my favorite features about this particular keyboard. It is fairly easy to remove the iPad from the back cover. I would say you'd have to really kind of pry this off. It is going to be fairly easy to pop this thing off just by kind of prying the edges back. And no, I don't want to do that. Cancel. Okay, but I don't want to pull it all the way off. I'm just showing you that it's fairly easy to come off. It's not going to, you don't have to dismantle or take multiple pieces apart just to do that. Okay, so let's do a quick typing test. Okay, that looks pretty good. It's typing quite well, very responsive. I like the way it's typing. I'm not missing any beats or anything like that. So that's a very good thing. I think that this is typing out ultimately pretty good compared to some other keyboards that I've seen. It's pretty comparable to the typability on some other keyboards such as the Logitech or the Belkin, which there are multiple models of either of those two brands. I particularly like the Belkin Code Ultimate Pro. That's actually their nicest one that compares to this. The difference being that the Code is not hinged, where this one is. I particularly like the hinged model because it adds an extra bit of rigidity to the entire package. Now you may notice, let's come back out here. You may notice that there is a little bit of a wobble. This is another inherent issue with the Slim Book. However, this one is not as bad. There's really not any play that I'm seeing. There's just maybe a hair of play, but compared to the Slim Book, this is much more tightened up. So, and this is pretty standard. I mean, most laptops have the same amount of play, so I'm not too concerned about that. Okay, so I've covered a lot of the good points, and now I'm going to kind of go into some of the cons. Okay, to start out, I think the biggest con with this is it's extremely expensive in my opinion. This thing goes for $150. I would say it's probably the second or third highest priced keyboard on the market. Now, one thing that I will want to mention is that the whole thing is much thicker than your standard keyboard. For example, the Slim Book probably is almost as thick as just the whole base all by itself, iPad and base combined. So it's very thin compared to this. So you are losing a little bit of the thin feature with the iPad Air 2. As you know, the iPad Air 2 is very thin, was one of the reasons why I bought it. So you're losing some of the thinness, however you're gaining a ton of security and durability with the case. So I would say that it could be a con for some and a bonus for others, because if you have kids, this is excellent. This would probably compare more to like an OtterBox or a LifeProof type of case. Another feature that I don't like, which is not really a feature, it's more of a con really, it's a con that you cannot put this thing into portrait mode. It just will not sit here. I mean, the reason being it doesn't have any notches here to hold it into the ridge. So that's kind of a con in my opinion. As I mentioned before, the book mode I thought was just a little awkward for me because it's so thick that I prefer to just hold the iPad in my hand. It just seems to work better for me. I like it this way. It seems lighter and much easier to handle rather than the entire package. The other thing is it is a little heavy. Obviously it's going to be a little bit heavier just because it's thicker and more durable. It's got all this extra protective backing and layers that are built into it, so naturally that is going to make this whole package a little heavier. Feels like it's probably weighing maybe between 2 to 2.5 pounds or something to that effect. So overall I think this is a great keyboard package, and the quality of it and the build, everything seems very nice. It's very strong. I would almost bet my life on this thing surviving a drop just because of how durable it looks. Like I said, it looks like a Panasonic Toughbook, very similar as I showed you earlier. This definitely looks like a very good contender on the market right now. You know, hopefully this will give you a better informed buying decision on what you're getting into before you actually buy it. If you found this useful, please like and subscribe. That helps me out a lot. Also, if you would like to get other additional tips and tricks on iPads and other types of technology, please feel free to go to my website, thejoetechie.com, and you'll be able to see a wealth of information there. Thanks for watching and have a great one. Joe Techie out.